Quite the talent he is. Proper chatterbox yada. If you're keen, it'll be brilliant. Today, we're going to keep it simple. I'll bark out a basic command and you watch.
Keen to know? He'll set your tail wagging. Does mine, hence why I'm backing him. Right then, Wookiee here. Do take a seat, won't you? Give us your full attention while we listen to my pal, Yada.
Hey, well, welcome to the Ocean Studio. We were just contemplating how we were laying it out and the fact that with all of the new setup, Kevin is, not Kevin, but Rich is hidden behind a whole wall of lights. And so we're scheming as to how we were going to move those, although Wookiee is looking quite nice in the glow. So from that point of view, it's a good thing. We are continuing with the Luminaries series. That's appropriate when you're talking about illumination, is it not? This is part of the basic series, and we're going to pick up where we left off on Friday evening during our Shabbat family hour, where we considered this particular passage from the prophet Yow'el. Now, as a way of reminding everyone, since it's been a few days since we were in the Luminary series, the entire purpose of this series is to present the two luminaries, the Ma'owr, and in the plural, Ma'oreth, that Yahweh introduced to us in the opening book of the Towrah in Bereshith chapter 1. He dedicated everything pursuant to the fourth day to the pronouncement, a prophetic pronouncement, that two luminaries, both Gadowl from his point of view, both impactful, both have been around for a long time, both exceedingly influential and effective, that two luminaries, Ma'oreth, who are both Gadowl, would appear, one being greater than the other, one being younger than the other, and that they would work in harmony throughout all of time to designate the passage of time through the years and to designate and fulfill the Moedim. The Moedim are Pesach, Matsah, and Bikuwrym, the first three, the spring Moedim, that Dowd fulfilled. Moedim means restoring witnesses to the eternal testimony of the meeting times. And Dowd fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bikuwrym as he promised in 33 CE, which was year 4000 Yah. This was Dowd's fifth of sixth appearances here on earth. And then it is the younger of the two Ma'owr who will fulfill Shabuw'ah, which is upcoming. 18 days, I think, now to the initiation of the time of Yaakov's troubles, which begins on Shabuw'ah, and then the harvest a little over a year from now on the 11th of June of next year, while the time of Israel's troubles begins on 22 May of this year. And that it is the younger of the two luminaries who is responsible for fulfilling Shabuw'ah and Taruw'ah. And this then leads to them collaborating on Yom Kipurym, the day of reconciliation, when the lesser luminary makes it possible for the greater luminary to return. And then they work collaboratively throughout the 1,000-year celebration of Sukah thereafter. Those are the Moedim that the Ma'oreth enable, fulfill, honor, and provide. And their story is then told through the sun and the moon as they represent these greater and lesser luminaries. And they play an exceedingly important role in time, particularly during the last days, which is why we considered what was said in the 13th chapter of Yahowah in previous programs, and why we are now in the second chapter of Yow'el, considering that same time, because those prophecies are parallel to one another. And so we're continuing to now discuss the great jihad that is going to take place against Israel. And I was just frustrated today. I read again that Israel is spending boatloads of money to buy more F-35s and F-15s. And There's no value in them. Israel has not even considering or reading their own prophets, and you wonder, why are they unwilling to do that? What is it about Israel that is just not willing? So they're not willing to consider what they need to know about what's going to happen. The next war against Israel is the one that's being depicted in Yeshayah, Isaiah 13, and now in Yow'el, Joel 2. And it is a war of Mujahideen, of jihadists, the black scourge that's going to actually originate in Iran with upwards of 2 or 3, upwards probably of even of 4 million jihadists invading Israel. Isn't that a beautiful scene here as we broadcast from our ocean studio here in the Virgin Islands? And the F-15s and the F-35s are of absolutely no use whatsoever as it pertains to what's coming. And so Israel continues to position itself so that there will be as inept defending the country as the IDF was on October 7th of 2023 during Alaska flood. So this is what God continues to say. It says, accordingly, the sound of loudly roaring voices of these chariots upon the summits of the mountains will be loud as they leap about, springing into the air. It's like the crackling of a flame, and as if swords were clattering against each other, even with the roaring sound of glowing gases as fire devours the stubble and the chaff. This is a really tragic situation that is being depicted. And such is the nature of the vast army of countless throngs of militants as it is drawn up, aligned and arranged and positioned for war. As I've said, this next war against Israel is the Great Jihad, and it will be fought with millions of jihadists flooding into Israel, coming across the mountains into the nation, as opposed to by, enemy aircraft or tanks or that sort of thing. Israel is preparing for the wrong war and continues to position itself incorrectly. So such is the nature of this vast army of countless throngs of militants. They are drawn up, aligned, arranged, and positioned for war. Now, the fact that they're on the mountains where this black tide of Mujahideen were depicted while crackling like flames and clattering of swords resulting in a blaze that devours the stubble suggests that they are either being loud as they scream Allahu Akbar and as their weaponry clangs as they come into Israel, or that this is also God's way of devouring them. We've been told in Yow'el and in Yeshayah 13 that God's going to incinerate this terrorist horde and that they are going to be aghast as this happens. So they're going to be treated as stubble. So this could depict either of those two dimensions, either God destroying them or them trying to destroy God's land and his people. And so long as it is chaff that is being consumed, then this remains actually a favorable result if that is what is being conveyed. It does not appear that the militants will be enjoying this show, however. It is, from its appearance and very presence, the nations, their people, and their militaries tremble. They shake, writhing in anguish, terrorized and tormented. So the terrorists are terrorized, every face flushed and pale. Yow'el, Yah is God, Joel 2:6. Again, it pains me that the first Christians in writing their New Testament actually stole from the book of Yow'el to create the myth of the birth of their church, turning Shabuw'ah into Pentecost. It's a great crime against reason, because this speaks of a battle in the last days and is commiserate with the celebration of Shabuw'ah in 2033, and then the 7 years prior to it, and beginning in 2026. So they were off by 2,000 years. exceedingly disappointing. So if I'm reading all of this correctly, then Yahowah is deploying these spiritual vehicles strategically and surgically to remove the combatants rather than turn the nation into a blazing inferno, of course. And as he does, the jihadists who have entered the outskirts of Jerusalem will continue to act like the Muslims that the world witnessed on October 7th, that they will be reperpetrating Al-Aqsa flood. And Al-Aqsa flood was just really a repurposing of Muhammad's attack on the farming community early one morning of Kabar. The Kabar attack by Muhammad in the morning raid against that farming community was really no different than the Muslims at 6 o'clock in the morning screaming Allah Akbar and raiding the kibbutzim of southern Israel. But at this time, the preponderance of them are not coming from Gaza. These Muslims will be part of Iran's army, their reserves, and the IRGC, and they will be warriors. As combatants, God says they will charge ahead, quickly chasing their prey. As men of war, these soldiers and militants equipped with weapons will ascend walls and barriers. Each individual will travel in his own route, and yet they do not renounce their pledge. They do not turn back, and they will not swerve from their path or the conduct that defines their destiny. This is Yow'el, Joel 2:7. Now, it's if God read a goddamn religion, which was formerly Prophet of Doom. The Great Jihad is destined by Islam. It will occur just as God has said it will, and the combatants will treat Jews as prey, just as they did on October 7th. 7th, yes. And these men of war, which is the very definition of a jihadist, of a mujahideen, a mujahid, are militants. They're equipped with weapons. They are the favored slaves of Allah. The best of Muslims are jihadists, according to Allah. And as we know, whatever barriers and walls are put in their way, they will simply push through them. They will climb over them. They will ascend them. They will treat them as if they did not exist. Remember what happened on October 7th, the protective wall, this most sophisticated investment of Israel to provide early warning and to keep the Muslims in Gaza and out of Israel, failed tragically. They pushed bulldozers through it. They cut it down, tore it down, went over it, went through it. They just literally walked over the course of 12 hours. They simply meandered through it. And the IDF and the government didn't respond. Well, they're going to do it again. They were successful the last time. Israel hasn't learned its lesson. It did everything wrong during Al-Aqsa flood and after it. And so having not learned its lesson, the Muslims are going to repeat what worked. Now it says that each individual will travel in his own route. Now what that means is that they're not going to line up like sitting ducks. This is not going to be like what happened during the Yom Kippur War. Or even the 6 Days War, where Israel was able to gun down the movement of soldiers from Syria and Egypt because they were on roads and in vehicles and single file and going all in the same route or path, and they became sitting ducks. That's not going to happen this time. They're all going to travel in their own route, which means that there is no means, not drones, not artillery, not A-10s or Apache gunships, not tanks, not anything that's going to preclude their advance when they all go their own route. And yet, as they do, they will not renounce their pledge. Their pledge is the number one repeated jihadi theme throughout the Quran. It is the pledge of Aqaba. The pledge of Aqaba is where every Muslim has pledged to wage war against all mankind, beginning with Jews. So they travel their own route, yet they do not renounce their pledges. They do not turn back But this is another adroit assessment of the Quran. In the Quran, Allah specifically says that a Muslim cannot retreat. They can never turn back. And any Muslim that turns back from battle becomes a hypocrite and will be tortured by the Islamic ungod in hell. So they will not retreat from their path or the conduct that literally defines their destiny. Again, this is adroit of Yahowah, knowing that Islam would be fatalistic. It is based on predestination, so that every Muslim has a defined destiny which they cannot change. So while reading this in the aftermath, of course, of the U.S. and Israel miscalculation by attacking Iran yet again, I'm reminded of the Ayatollah's deployment of what is the dead hand. He knew that he would be assassinated, so he issued orders that we find echoed in this assessment. The Ayatollah divided the nation's defense into independent silos and told each of the commanders over those silos of potential aggression, whether they be missiles or drones or whatever the defensive mechanism under their control, that they were to continue to fight, no matter what else was said or done. And so here, the combatants charge ahead, never relenting, while independent of a centralized military command and control structure are no longer vulnerable, but yet still lethal. This is important because the realization is that they are each traveling independently, but never swerving or retreating, means that typical U.S. and Israeli decapitation strikes of senior leadership won't be of any benefit. In fact, would be counterproductive. Further, U.S. and Israeli tactics are negated because by dispersing tanks and aircraft are not effective deterrents, nor are A-10s or Apache helicopters, nor are drones. So this is how they will do it. They're Persians. They're smart. And God wrote exactly how it was going to happen 2,700 years ago. You know, you don't need a Shin Bet or a Mossad Israel if you just read the prophets. Now, other than being responsible for committing 90% of the world's most heinous terrorist acts, most Muslims aren't very good at most things. But these warriors will be primarily Persians, albeit likely augmented by Turks and Egyptians as this war progresses. I would say Saudi Arabians, but they don't know how to fight and really they would be as useless in a fight as the Haredi. But as we have witnessed, the Persians are resourceful. And of course, we can count on Muslims being boisterous and agitated, even acting like thieves, as this next prophecy foretells. That is not to say that every Muslim is an immoral and deadly terrorist, but all the good ones are, and that's according to the Quran. Not only are the Mujahideen opposed to Jews and overwhelmingly in favor of war against Israel, but as we have seen, they have a thing for scaling walls and evading protective barriers. Also insightful, the single most defining event in Islam, as I have shared, is the Pledge of Aqaba. It is the declaration of war against all mankind that actually began the religion. The first year of the Islamic era is tied to the Pledge of Aqaba. So here we are told that they will not renounce that vow to kill. They will continue to fight in Allah's cause until death, which is why Yahowah will be accommodating them. Fair is fair, you know. Well, this next pronouncement explains how these militants will be able to travel across Iran, through Iraq and Syria, into Israel without being successfully attacked from the air. They're going to disperse such that aircraft will be rendered useless against them. And as the battle ensues, the narrative suggests that they will find plenty of other Mujahideen along the way, eager to prove that they are devoted slaves to Allah. The text reads, an individual never presses or bumps into his brother. They're dispersed. They don't crowd together. A combatant man in his own way, on his religious trek, walks, traveling without making contact with another. They spread out. You know, one religion, one cause, many independent actors. This isn't complicated. They have learned from what occurred on 10/7 of 23. Spread out. You can walk into Israel and destroy communities. Rape, plunder, murder, kidnap, to your heart's desire if you follow that pattern. And God obviously saw it. He reported 2,700 years ago what was going to happen, and it's going to happen again because Israel is so damn stubborn, so thick-headed that they don't seem willing to learn from their history, from their God, from the prophets. No. So this reads, with their weapons, they attack as their missiles fall without relenting. And that's as it will be. They will rush violently, surgingly, greedingly ahead while raging and charging into the city, through the buildings and around the walls and barriers as they run swiftly and intensely. Into the houses they climb through the windows, entering as thieves. Yow'el 2:9. So, dunderheads, Israelis, Jews, I'm talking to you. Hey, stupid. Why are you buying more F-15s and F-35s? How's that going to help you? Are you going to use F-15s and F-35s to protect homes within Jerusalem? I expect, you can read, right? These prophecies were delivered in your language, weren't they? What is it with you? Why do you have to go through 3,500 years of collective ignorance, such you are completely unwilling to listen to God? He told you how they were going to attack. He told you when they were going to attack. He told you how they were going to attack. He told you why they were going to attack. He gave you their battle plan, and you pay no attention to it. Why? Are you that disinterested in God that you would give him lip service as Hashem and yet pay absolutely no attention to him? This is your future. This is the next war. This is how it will be waged. This is where it will be waged. This is who is going to wage it. These are primarily Iranian Muslims. They're going to feed in from Iran, through Iraq, through Syria, over the mountains as a black horde. And all the while, missiles are going to rain down on Israel from Iran, from Iraq, from the Houthis and Yemen, from Hezbollah and Lebanon. And I'm here to tell you also from Turkey and from Syria and from Gaza and from Judea and Samaria, all over. And it is likely before this time, in fact, I would say certain, that there is going to be a Fakistanian state, and so you're going to be vulnerable from within and from without. This is what's going to happen. Your barriers are worthless. Your aircraft are worthless. Your tanks are worthless. Your IDF is worthless. Your Mossad and Shin Bet are worthless. Your politicians are worthless. Your rabbis have always been worthless. And yet, you won't listen to God. You know, the very first thing that Yahowah did when he introduced himself to me, now a quarter century ago, is ask me to expose and condemn Islam, which I have done originally through Prophet of Doom, and then also through Tea with Terrorists. And I have subsequently, following October 7th of 2023, Alaska flood, expanded and augmented Prophet of Doom into Goddamn Religion. It's now 5 volumes, not 1 volume. It's now 4,200 pages. It is irrefutable. It tells you exactly who Allah is and who He's not, who Muhammad was and was not, what Islam represents then and today, what a jihadist is, what they're committed to doing, what they did under Muhammad's influence, what they continue to do today, what Allahu Akbar actually means. It reveals what happened in Yathrib, which became Medina, with the genocide perpetrated against Jews, and how that was perpetrated again at the Jewish community in Kabar, and exactly how that transpired. Matter of fact, as part of this show, early Yahowah blogs, I specifically spoke not only of the atrocities and the Holocaust that was perpetrated against Jews in Arabia 1,400 years ago under Muhammad's leadership with Allah's approval, of the Jews of Yathrib being annihilated, and then the Jews of Kabar being annihilated. I even went into great detail to present Islam as a criminal enterprise and how it was born during the raids of Badr. But I've given you the textbook on Islam, everything that can be known about Muhammad and Allah and Islam and jihad, the hatred against Jews, how the Quran was actually written, because it was a combination of stories, Talmud readings that rabbis sold to Muhammad. That's the only reason that the religion exists today, because rabbis made a buck by selling Talmud readings to Muhammad. And when they mocked him for claiming they came from Allah, the psychopath did what all psychopaths do when threatened. He killed them. And that's what led to this. All of this has been made available to you. You look at the books over my shoulder here. 5 of those books, of the 35 that I have written, are under the title Goddamn Religion. God asked me to write them for you. The least you could do is read them. I've risked my life to deliver the truth to you with thousands of death threats. Wouldn't it inconvenience you so much to read what God wants you to know about the religion, would you? Would it? Or why I can study what God said through the prophet Yow'el and say, out of way, God. I mean, you know the religion as well as I do. You are exposing everything that is essential to know about Islam, and I can affirm it, just as I did moments ago. And then you go in and you say exactly how they're going to perpetrate what the warrior, wherever country they may be from, fighting the last war, is going to say can't be done. You know, I've had it up to here with idiots to say this can't be done because, a moving army would be obliterated. No. You have to do it like 10-7. You have to do it like this. The Persians are smart. They know what's going to happen. They're tired of Israel. You attacked them twice now, and they're fed up with you. And this is the consequence. So an individual is never going to press into or bump into another. They're going to be devoted to their religious trek. They're going to walk without ever making contact with one another, which means they aren't going to be fodder for a A-10 or Apache gunship. There's nothing that Israel will be able to do to stem this tidal wave of Mujahideen. And with their weapons, they're going to attack as their missiles fall. I predicted a year before 10/7 that it would occur as it did, that the missiles would go primarily be directed into cities, while the Mujahideen would attack the smaller communities, and that they would make the defense of those communities almost impossible by just the number of them and the way that they go into homes. And now Yahowah is saying that the next great jihad will be fought the same way. Missiles will fly overhead, they will fall into the city, and the jihadists will operate beneath that cover. Israel will be trying to put out the fire in the cities and be losing the infrastructure, water supply and electricity to be able to fight the devastation that is being done, while all the same time the terrorists will number in the millions. This time, not in the thousands. And so with their weapons, they attack as their missiles fall, and they do so without relenting. This time, it's not going to be a 24-hour affair. It's going to go on for days and weeks and months and years. The time of Jacob's troubles is 7 years. That doesn't mean this particular war is going to last all 7 of it. I think this begins on Shabuw'ah of next year. Lots of terrible things are going to happen to Jews in Israel over the next 12 months before we get to that point, and it's not going to start at full tilt. This is something that is gradually being worked up to, but this is the direction that the Muslims are going, and God made it clear. You should be paying attention, Israel. They will rush violently, surging greedily. You know, Islam has a surah called Stealing is Lawful and Good. It's the 8th surah of the Quran. That's why they plunder. That's why Muslims in the 1st century after Muhammad's death raped the world. They killed a third of the earth's population and enslaved and robbed another third. They will rush violently. There is nobody more violent in the history of humanity than Muslim. They will surge greedily. And they will do so without relenting, and even into the city. Through the buildings, around walls, around barriers, they will run swiftly. They will be intense. They will enter the homes of Jews as they did once before. They will climb through the windows. They will enter like the thieves that their God has made them. Well, there will be many more of them, and they will be far better armed and trained. Nevertheless, it is as if Yahowah took Yow'el forward in time to witness the Muslim atrocities that were and will once again be perpetrated against his people. This is largely what occurred on October 7th of 23. And make no mistake, Muslims have a special kind of savagery built into their DNA. Unlike any other militants in Israel's history, as the Quran observant fundamentalists are so corrupted by their religion, they are far more perverted, ruthless, and cruel than any other combatants. And make no mistake, these will be Muslims, all of them, even if Persians rather than less capable Arabs. You know, Israel wants to constantly lash out at races as their problem is an Arab-Jew issue, and that is not the case. Not only are these combatants Persians, but when you look at issues racially, you miss the point. The problem is religion, yours and theirs. It's not the skin pigmentation or a racial designation. The realization that they will take individual routes into the city may suggest that the Iranian horde from Babel will inspire other Muslims to support the Great Jihad, such that Turkey and Egypt enter the fray. As recently as April 2026, last month, Erdogan of Turkey declared war on Israel. So this would not be surprising. And Sisi of Egypt is conducting war games in the Sinai in direct violation of the Camp David Accords. Now, what we have read describes militants who are well armed and trained, but nonetheless more reliant on vast numbers of fighters than advanced technology. And it is with the exception of the aforementioned missiles, of course, that they will prevail. The combination will be a horrifying experience for the Jewish state. The only protection from all of this will be Yahowah by way of the Shabuw'ah harvest. If you want out, this is your last chance. But for that to occur, you will need to join us now, because heaven won't wait. Otherwise, this is your lot. And as we will discover in Zechariah, 2 out of every 3 Israelites will die during the next 7 years, known as the time of Jacob's troubles. Now, at this point, we find the first of 2 references to the sun and moon, which is why we turn to Yow'el 2 in this book devoted to following the luminaries through time. Their ongoing frustration is that far too few have listened to them. And now, in the fog of war with AI-infused social media, their politicians and rabbis are leading everyone astray. Good information and intelligent decisions are particularly rare. The earth will quake before them. The heavens will be discordant, clamoring for battle. The sun and the moon will mourn, dimming, such that the luminaries will have their knowledge, radiant splendor, and brilliance taken away by the harvest. Yahweh is God, Yow'el 2:10. I don't think anybody perceived that Asaph was written following the dimming of the brilliance of and the grieving of the brilliance of the sun and the moon. The fact that the radiant splendor and brilliance will be taken away, it's taken away by the harvest. It's a cough. That means that the covenant family representing the sun and the moon are removed. Their contribution is negated for a while. And it's not exactly like Israel's paying tremendous attention to them anyway, but they are the only voice of God in this world at this time. So in this prophecy, Yow'el has telescoped a few years back in time. The story opened on Taruw'ah with God's resolution, ostensibly to comfort those who will suffer this siege. It is essential for them to know that even in the darkness, the light will return and prevail. When analyzing the prophecies presented through Daniel by Gabriel, we find a significant event transpires within 48 hours of Shabuw'ah in 2027, suggesting that this is the commencement of what I have dubbed as Alaska Flood 2.0. That being the case, the light of the Qatan Ma'owr will have indeed dimmed, as he will be part of that harvest and will be taken away for 3 years. And during that time, the Gadowl Ma'owr's light will also be diminished, because it will no longer be reflected by the moon. the knowledge that they have been providing will have been taken away as it is removed during the harvest. The sun has shone brilliantly, revealing upwards of, 100 some mizmor. And the moon has done his part in reflecting what the sun has achieved, particularly in fulfilling the spring Mow'ed Pesach Matsah Bikuwrym. But a time will come when neither will be visible. So capitalize now while you can. The notion that the actual sun and the moon, rather than these two luminaries, are darkened by the atmospheric condition is challenged by the realizations that neither the sun nor the moon cause the earth to quake, do they? Or the heavens to clamor for resolution, which would involve war. Neither the sun or the moon will actually darken, and they are incapable of grieving. Additionally, while luminaries can become less enlightening and they can be taken away during the harvest, such is not the case with stars. And let's not lose sight of the fact that Yahowah was the only person over the past 2,500 years to recognize Dowd's contribution to our salvation and reestablish his dignity, the first person to identify the two Ma'owr. And at the same time, when we consider the belligerence, since Yahowah wrote the most effective and comprehensive denunciation of Islam and goddamn religion, with his temporary withdrawal during Shabuw'ah, the most prolific source of knowledge regarding this jihadist will also have disappeared. But since he is here today, speaking with you, he wants you to know that 4,000 Mujahideen were so barbaric that they left a gaping wound on Israel on 10/7/23. So, the havoc of 100 to perhaps even 1,000 times this number will cause this event to be horrific. And that is what Yahowah is telling Israel will occur. And while these Muslims will be intent on genocide, as they have been for 1,400 years, Jews should be forewarned that they are readily distracted by these Muslims by rape and plunder, even sadistic torture, as they should have acknowledged. These are things which are encouraged by their wannabe God and their false prophet because, they were both perverts. And while terror is being discussed with the advent of the sun and moon appearing in this prophecy, we would be wise to contemplate this testimony in concert with Yahowah's depiction of universal Genesis. As we know, rather than using bara, which is the Hebrew word for to create, he addressed the presentation of the greater and lesser luminaries as signs. He didn't say that the sun was conceived or that the moon was created on the fourth day. No, he said that the Gadowl and Qatan Ma'owr luminaries would become visible and that they would serve as willing signs to fulfill the Moedim. So Yahowah revealed that they would serve in this fashion, that they would fulfill the 7 Mow'ed Miqra'ey. And in this regard, Dowd, whom Yahowah equates to the brilliance of the sun in the 89th mizmor, transformed our lives by fulfilling Pesach Matsah Bikuwrym, the first 3 Moedim. While God's firstborn will soon return to assure Kipurym reconciliations between Yahowah and Yisrael, no one knew any of this prior to his Bashar, heralds, revelations. And they were all brought to you in the series that bears the name Yada Yahowah. Available free at yadayah.com. And in this way, Yada came to mirror Dowd's brilliance, as the moon reflects the sun's light. Therefore, in this prophetic pronouncement, Yow'el is revealing that in the midst of this murderous Islamic assault on Israel, the enlightenment provided by the sun, which is symbolic of the sun, and the moon, representing the one reflecting the king's light, is going to diminish. And this is because of Shabuw'ah. Yahowah will be withdrawing the covenant family on either May 22nd, 2026, within a matter of 3 weeks, which would be a year prior to the final jihad, or on June 11th, 2027, which I think is more likely, concurrent with it. With the Choder stem temporarily removed, Yahowah's voice will echo only through the auditory content and written books positioned throughout yadayah.com. They are the stars of this prophecy. To a significant degree, much of what Yisrael has come to know about their Messiah, Savior, and returning King through the Nakri, this observant foreigner, will be shelved when we are gone. However, this reduction of enlightenment, you can see the Wookiee is definitely soaking it in. That is quite the life. Is temporary, because Yahowah's coal voice will return, and it will be bolder and stronger than before. Just as Yow'el 2:10 leads to the pronouncements in 2:11. Very similar path. Yahowah refers to the moon's witness and to the sun's light as his Nathan gift to his people. His coal voice gives voice to the essential realization that Dowd is the son who is given for our benefit. Yahowah's coal voice is currently serving and will return to engage as Chil-Hu, his especially capable and influential Ida, restoring witness to the eternal testimony, while heralding our Malek's king's return. And while the moon's reflection of the Yerex, this Yerek, the reflecting surface of the moon, and is conveying the Shemek's sun's illumination, while it will dim momentarily as a result of the Shabuw'ah harvest, as we approach Taruw'ah, his brilliance will be on full display. So I'd like to recommend listening to the one God who has provided all of this for his people. Oh, I guess we're about to get some rain. Is that what I'm sensing here, Rich? Why we're going to cover the books? Don't worry about me. It's not. I'm drip dry, as they say. But I would like to protect our books. So thank you for doing so. You have to wear a lot of hats here if you are production manager for the Yahowah blog. Yes, I can see even in the scene behind me that it has gone stormy and dark. Wookiee, who does not like the rain, will soon be moving, of course, from his chair. And I'll stay here as long as the microphone and the computers don't get drenched with a blowing rain. So we'll see how it all works out. So I'd recommend for Yisrael to listen to Yahowah. This begins. Yahowah will have offered by having given. Yahowah Nathan. Yahowah will have offered by having given. Chil-Hu, his voice. God is giving, providing, offering his voice by the appearance and presence of Chil-Hu, his especially capable and influential one. Now, while that is very powerful, I'm here to tell you that with the blowing rain, we're going to call it quits. And I'm going to take my microphone and move out of harm's way. I can continue to speak with you. I just can't have this equipment get pounded by rain. I'll move the computer back and can share with you that we'll probably have to wrap up this show unless this were to pass by. As again, I don't mind having the rain. It's a wonderful, when you live on an island like this, without the rain, nothing would live. We capture in a cistern system all of the water that we use in our home, both for our irrigation around the home with the beautiful flowers and faunas you've been able to see, but also for all of our drinking water and our bathing water. It's all collected from the sky. There's no plumbing that exists on an island like this. And so we're delighted when it rains. It's a little harder during the shows, of course, but since Rich saved our books and the computers and the cameras are now inside, what a difference that has made in terms of the viability of our ability to produce this show. We're delighted to have it. So thank you, Yahowah, for the rain. We love it. We cherish it here. And it is at a nice stopping place for our presentation of Luminaries. We will, of course, return to this place in the show, momentarily. And guess what you didn't get, Rich? The external camera. So we're going to go cover up our, we had the outdoor beach cam, and it got left on the outside. So we're going to go and we'll just go and release it and bring it in. So thank you for listening. We'll be back with you in another show. Thank you again. Good day.